March 6th, 1964, 10:17 a.m. Stephanie St. Clair, known for 40 years as Madam Queen, the woman who'd built Harlem's numbers racket from nothing, who'd fought Dutch Schultz and won, who'd mentored Bumpy Johnson when he was nobody, sat in a one-bedroom apartment on West 139th Street with $47 in her purse and no way to pay next month's rent. She was 73 years old, and she'd been robbed of everything by the man she'd trusted most. The knock on her door at 10:17 a.m. was Bumpy Johnson, carrying a bag of groceries and a look of concern that deepened when he saw her face. "Stephanie," Bumpy said quietly, setting the groceries on her small kitchen table. "Julia said you weren't answering your phone. Are you all right?" Stephanie St. Clair had always been proud, fierce, the kind of woman who'd rather die than admit weakness. But sitting there in that small apartment, looking at the man she'd given his first real opportunity to 35 years ago, she couldn't maintain the facade anymore. "I'm ruined," she said simply. Bumpy pulled out a chair and sat down. "Tell me what happened." For 30 minutes, Stephanie told him the story. After she'd retired in 1952, she turned over her remaining business interests to her former partner, a man named Marcus Hendricks. Marcus had been with her since the 1930s, had helped her fight Dutch Schultz, had been loyal through wars and police raids and everything else. Or so she'd thought. Marcus had promised to manage her investments, to ensure she'd have income for the rest of her life. She'd trusted him completely, given him power of attorney. Signed papers he told her were just formalities. Over the past 12 years, Marcus had systematically stolen everything. He'd sold her properties and kept the money. He'd liquidated her investments and transferred the funds to his own accounts. He'd forged documents, manipulated records, and used her trust to take everything she'd spent 40 years building. By the time Stephanie realized what was happening, it was too late. She'd confronted Marcus 2 weeks ago. He'd laughed at her. "Who's going to believe you?" Marcus had said. "You're an old woman, your memory's probably gone, and legally I haven't done anything wrong. You signed everything over to me willingly." He'd been right about the legal part. The documents were legitimate. The signatures were hers. A lawyer had told her she had no case. "How much did he take?" Bumpy asked. "Everything. The buildings, the investments, the cash reserves. I had over $200,000 when I retired. Now I have $47 and this apartment, which I'm renting, because Marcus sold the building I used to own." Stephanie's voice was steady, but her hands were shaking. "And the worst part," she continued, "is that everyone knows. Everyone in Harlem knows that Madam Queen, the woman who fought the mob and won, got robbed by her own partner. They're laughing at me, Bumpy, saying I'm a foolish old woman who should have known better." Bumpy was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "Where is Marcus now?" "Living in my old brownstone on Edgecombe Avenue, the one I bought in 1934. He's there with his new wife, throwing parties, acting like he earned it himself." "And nobody's done anything about this?" "Who would? The police don't care about an old black woman who got swindled by her business partner. The courts say everything was legal, and the people who used to work for me, they work for Marcus now. He's got money and power, and I've got nothing." Bumpy stood up slowly. "Stephanie, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Pack a bag. Enough clothes for a week. You're going to stay with Mame and me until this is resolved." "Bumpy, I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking," Bumpy interrupted gently. "I'm telling you. And Stephanie, I need you to trust me on something else." "What?" "In 72 hours, Marcus Hendricks is going to return everything he took from you. And he's going to do it on his knees." Stephanie looked at him like he'd lost his mind. "Bumpy, he's protected. He's got lawyers. He's got connections. He's got 72 hours. That's all. Now pack your bag." March 6th, 1964, 2:30 p.m.
Bumpy made 8 calls. The first was to Meyer Lansky. Meyer, I need information on Marcus Hendricks. Everything. Bank accounts, properties, business deals, debts, affairs, anything that could be used as leverage. Marcus Hendricks? Stephanie's old partner? That's right. He robbed her, took everything, left her with nothing, and now I'm going to take it all back. Meyer was quiet for a moment. Bumpy, Stephanie St. Clair was before my time in Harlem, but everyone knows her story. She's a legend. If Marcus really did this, he did, and I need your help to prove it. You'll have everything I can find by tonight. The second call was to a forensic accountant who specialized in finding hidden money. The third was to a real estate lawyer who understood how property transfers could be challenged. The fourth was to 3 of Marcus Hendricks's current business associates, men who'd once worked for Stephanie and owed her their careers. The fifth was to a city councilman who remembered when Stephanie had helped his campaign in 1948. The sixth was to the IRS, specifically to an agent who owed Bumpy a favor. The seventh was to every bank where Marcus held accounts. The eighth was to Marcus Hendricks himself. Marcus answered on the second ring, his voice confident, almost jovial. Yeah? This is Bumpy Johnson. We need to talk about Stephanie St. Clair.
Oh, Bumpy. Yeah, I heard you were asking around about that. Look, what happened with Stephanie is unfortunate, but it's all legal. She signed. I don't care what she signed, Bumpy interrupted. You robbed her. You took advantage of a woman who trusted you, who gave you everything you have, and you left her with nothing. That's not how I see it, Marcus said. I managed her affairs. I made decisions. If those decisions benefited me, that's because I was doing the work. You stole $200,000. I earned that money over 12 years of managing her investments. No, Bumpy said quietly. You stole it. And now I'm going to give you one chance to make this right. You have 72 hours to return everything you took from Stephanie. Every dollar, every property, every investment. If you do that, this ends peacefully. Oh, look out, Bumpy, Marcus laughed. Or what? You're going to threaten me? Break my legs? That's 1930s thinking, Bumpy. This is 1964. Everything I did was legal. You can't touch me. You're right, Bumpy said. I can't touch you, but I can take everything you stole, the same way you took it from Stephanie, legally, systematically, completely. And in 72 hours, you're going to wish you'd given it back when I asked nicely. Good luck with that, Marcus said, and hung up. March 6, 1964, Day 1, 6 p.m. Marcus Hendricks received a visit from an IRS agent at 6 p.m. Mr. Hendricks, we're conducting an audit of your tax returns for the past 5 years. Specifically, we're looking into income from property transfers and investment liquidations that may not have been properly reported. That's ridiculous. My accountant handles everything. It's all legitimate. Then you won't mind providing documentation. We'll need every bank statement, every property deed, every transfer agreement you've executed since 1952. 1952? That's 12 years of records. Yes, sir. We'll give you 72 hours to produce everything. If you can't, or if there are discrepancies, we'll be forced to freeze your assets pending further investigation. The agent left. Marcus immediately called his lawyer. They can't do this, can they? If the IRS suspects tax fraud, they can do whatever they want. You need to get those records together, all of them. March 7th, 1964, Day 2, 9 a.m. Marcus woke up to find that 3 of his bank accounts had been frozen pending IRS review. At 10 a.m., he received a call from the real estate management company that handled his properties. Mr. Hendricks, we've received a legal challenge to your ownership of the Edgecombe Avenue brownstone. A lawyer representing Stephanie St. Clair is claiming the transfer was fraudulent.
That's insane. I have the deed. She signed it over to me. Yes, sir, but they're claiming she signed under duress and didn't understand what she was signing. There's going to be a hearing. Until then, we're required to place the property in escrow.
At 2 p.m., 3 of Marcus's business associates called to inform him they were dissolving their partnerships. It's nothing personal, Marcus, but we're hearing things. About the IRS, about Stephanie. We can't be associated with this right now. At 4 p.m., Marcus's wife found out about an affair he'd been having with a woman in Brooklyn. She filed for divorce and moved out of the brownstone, taking most of the furniture with her. At 7 p.m., Marcus sat in his mostly empty brownstone, surrounded by legal documents he couldn't organize fast enough, watching his empire crumble in real time. And he finally understood what was happening. Bumpy Johnson wasn't threatening him with violence. Bumpy was dismantling his life, piece by piece, using the same systems Marcus had used to rob Stephanie. March 8, 1964, Day 3, 11 a.m. Marcus Hendricks showed up at Bumpy Johnson's office at Small's Paradise, carrying a briefcase and looking like he hadn't slept in 2 days. "I need to talk to you," Marcus said. "Sit down," Bumpy replied. Marcus sat, opened his briefcase, pulled out a stack of documents. "These are transfer agreements for the properties, and bank statements showing the accounts and investment records, everything I took from Stephanie." "Why are you showing me this?" Bumpy asked. "Because I'm giving it all back, today, right now, all of it." "Why?" Marcus's hands were shaking as he spread the documents across Bumpy's desk. "In the past 72 hours, I've lost my wife, my business partners, access to my money, and I'm facing an IRS audit that's going to send me to prison if I can't explain where all this money came from. And the only way to explain it is to admit I stole it from Stephanie St. Clair." He looked up at Bumpy. "You did this, all of it. The IRS, the legal challenges, my partners leaving, even my wife finding out about Brooklyn. You orchestrated everything." "I didn't orchestrate anything," Bumpy said calmly. "I just made sure the right people knew the truth. The IRS already suspected you weren't paying taxes on income you'd obtained illegally. Your business partners already knew you'd betrayed Stephanie and were worried about being associated with you. Your wife already suspected the affair. I just accelerated the timeline." Marcus stared at him. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to return everything you stole from Stephanie. Every dollar, every property, every investment. And then I want you to apologize to her, in person, on your knees. And if I do that, this stops? If you do that, I'll make sure the IRS audit concludes that you made some accounting errors, but nothing criminal. I'll make sure the property challenges are dropped. I'll even make sure your ex-wife gets a fair settlement instead of taking you for everything." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "And if I don't?" Then the audit continues. The legal challenges proceed. Your partners permanently cut ties, and in 6 months, you're broke, divorced, and possibly in prison. Your choice. Marcus looked at the documents spread across the desk, looked at Bumpy's calm, unwavering expression. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "I'll give it all back." March 8, 1964, 4 p.m. Stephanie St. Clair sat in Bumpy's living room when Marcus Hendricks arrived. He walked in carrying 2 briefcases and wearing a suit that looked slept in. When he saw Stephanie, he stopped. "Madame," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper. Stephanie didn't respond, just looked at him with the same cold expression she'd stared down Dutch Schultz in 1935. Marcus walked forward slowly, set the briefcases on the coffee table, then did something that everyone in the room would remember for the rest of their lives. He dropped to his knees. "Madame St. Clair," Marcus said, his voice breaking, "I robbed you. I took advantage of your trust. I stole everything you'd built and left you with nothing. And I did it because I was greedy and I thought I could get away with it." He opened the first briefcase. Inside were property deeds, bank statements, investment records. "This is everything. The brownstone on Edgecombe, the apartment building on 145th Street, the investments, the cash accounts, all of it. I'm transferring it back to you today." He opened the second briefcase. It was filled with cash, bundles of $100 bills. "This is $73,000. It's everything I have liquid right now. The rest is in the accounts and properties. It totals $216,000, more than I took because some of the investments grew." Stephanie didn't move, didn't speak. "I'm sorry," Marcus continued, tears running down his face now. "I'm so sorry. You gave me everything. You trusted me, and I betrayed you in the worst possible way. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging you to accept this return, to take back what's yours." Bumpy stood against the wall, watching silently. Stephanie finally spoke. "Why now, Marcus? Why give it back now?" Marcus looked up at her. "Because Bumpy Johnson made me understand something. He showed me that everything I took from you could be taken from me just as easily, and that the only way to stop that from happening was to return what I'd stolen." "So you're not sorry," Stephanie said coldly. "You're just scared." "I'm both," admitted Marcus. "I'm terrified of what will happen if I don't make this right. But I'm also ashamed, because looking at you now, seeing what I reduced you to, I finally understand what I did. I didn't just steal your money. I stole your dignity, your reputation, the respect you'd earned over 40 years. And I can't give that back. I can only return what I took financially and hope that it's enough." Stephanie looked at Bumpy. Bumpy nodded once. "Stand up," Stephanie said. Marcus stood. "I accept your return," Stephanie said. "The properties, the investments, the cash, all of it. But understand this, Marcus. You're leaving New York, today, and you're never coming back. Because if I ever see your face again, Bumpy Johnson won't have to do anything. I'll handle you myself." "Yes, madam," Marcus whispered. He left the briefcases on the coffee table, turned, and walked out of Bumpy's house. He was on a train to Philadelphia by 7 p.m. that night. Nobody in New York heard from him again. March 9th, 1964. The next day. The IRS quietly closed its audit of Marcus Hendricks, citing insufficient evidence of criminal intent. The legal challenges to the property transfers were withdrawn. The bank accounts were unfrozen and immediately transferred back to Stephanie St. Clair's name. Within a week, Stephanie had moved back into her brownstone on Edgecombe Avenue. The same brownstone she'd bought in 1934. The same brownstone Marcus had stolen. She lived there for another 5 years, until her death in 1969 at the age of 78. During those 5 years, she never forgot what Bumpy had done for her, and neither did anyone else in Harlem. The story of how Bumpy Johnson recovered Stephanie St. Clair's stolen fortune became legend in Harlem, not because of violence, there hadn't been any, not because of threats, not directly, but because Bumpy had done something that proved a point everyone needed to remember. Loyalty isn't optional. When someone gives you everything, teaches you everything, trusts you with everything, you don't betray them. And if you do, someone will make sure you pay it back, every penny, on your knees. Years later, a journalist asked Bumpy about Marcus Hendricks. "People say you destroyed his life to help Stephanie St. Clair. Is that true?" "I didn't destroy his life. I just made sure he gave back what he'd stolen." "How did you do it?" "By using the same systems he used to steal from her." Marcus thought he was smart because he'd made everything legal. He had documents, signatures, legal transfers. But what he didn't understand is that legality doesn't protect you when everyone knows the truth. "What do you mean?" I mean that Marcus's power came from people believing he'd earned what he had. Once I made it clear he'd stolen it all from an old woman he was supposed to protect, those same people turned on him. The IRS investigated because they realized his income didn't match his reported earnings. The banks froze his accounts because they didn't want to be associated with theft. His partners left because they didn't want the reputation damage. And his wife? Bumpy smiled slightly. His wife was already suspicious. I just made sure she found out what she already knew. Do you think what you did was justice?
I think Stephanie St. Clair built Harlem's numbers racket from nothing. She fought the mob. She protected her community. She gave dozens of people, including me, their first real opportunities. And when she was old and vulnerable, someone she trusted took everything from her. So yes, making him give it back, making him apologize on his knees, that was justice. What happened to Marcus after he left New York? I don't know, and I don't care. He could be successful somewhere else. He could be struggling. It doesn't matter. What matters is that he learned a lesson. Some debts are more than financial. And when you betray someone like Stephanie St. Clair, you answer to everyone she ever helped, including me. Stephanie St. Clair died in 1969, 5 years after Bumpy recovered her stolen fortune. At her funeral, over 1,000 people came to pay their respects. The woman who'd been reduced to $47 in a rented apartment was buried from a brownstone she owned, with money in the bank and her dignity intact. Bumpy Johnson gave the eulogy. He talked about Stephanie's strength, her intelligence, her refusal to bow to anyone. But he ended with something nobody expected. Stephanie taught me 2 things when I was young, Bumpy said. First, she taught me that power without principle is just bullying. You need to stand for something beyond yourself. Second, she taught me that loyalty is the only currency that matters in this world. Money comes and goes, territory shifts, but loyalty, real loyalty, that lasts forever. He paused. When someone violated Stephanie's trust, when they thought her age made her weak and her loyalty made her foolish, I had a choice. I could accept it as unfortunate but legal, or I could remember what she'd taught me about loyalty and principle. I chose loyalty. I chose principle. And I made sure that the man who'd forgotten both learned what they cost. Everyone in that church knew what he was talking about. Everyone knew about Marcus Hendricks. Everyone knew about the 72 hours that had turned a thief into a beggar. And everyone understood the lesson. You can steal money, you can forge documents, you can manipulate laws, but you can't steal from someone protected by loyalty stronger than any legal system. And if you try, you'll return everything you took, every penny, on your knees. Because some debts aren't about money, they're about honor. And honor, once demanded, cannot be denied.